Wednesday, November the 23rd marked a major milestone in the efforts of the Central Bank of Nigeria to solve numerous challenges facing the management of the local currency, the Naira, with the unveiling of the redesigned 200 Naira, 500 Naira and 1000 Naira banknotes at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, cited hoarding, worsening shortage of clean and fit banknotes, increasing ease by criminals and risk of counterfeiting as the compelling reasons for the Naira redesign. We have more on that in today's package. Also, the CBN Monetary Policy Committee held its final meeting of the year earlier this week, where the committee unanimously voted to raise the benchmark interest rate, plus facts behind the numbers, post-MPC meeting of CBN directors with members of the press, all after this message. Stay tuned.
The second edition of the biannual RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit, organized by the Central Bank of Nigeria in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, holds on Tuesday, November 29, 2022 at the Eco Hotel and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos, with the theme RT200 Non-Oil Export Scheme, The Journey So Far. The event will feature keynote speeches from the summit host and Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and the chief host, the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. There will also be panelist discussions by major industry players. Guests are expected to be seated at 8:30 a.m. prompt. Attendance is open to all stakeholders in the non-oil export sector. This message is announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN.
Welcome back. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and his deputies on Wednesday, November the 23rd, joined President Muhammadu Buhari and others for a hybrid Federal Executive Council meeting in Aso Villa, where the three redesigned 200, 500 and 1000 Naira denominations were unveiled. Mr. Emefiele remarked in his speech that currency management is a key function of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as enshrined in Section 2, Subsection B of the CBN Act 2007, and the integrity of a local legal tender, the efficiency of its supply, its efficacy in conduct of monetary policy are some of the hallmarks of a great central bank. However, in recent times, currency management in Nigeria has faced several challenges that have continued to grow in scale and sophistication, with unintended consequences for the integrity of both the Central Bank of Nigeria and the country. He highlighted the challenge of significant hoarding of banknotes by members of the public, with statistics showing that more than 80% of currency in circulation are outside the vaults of commercial banks and only slightly above 15% of the Central Bank and commercial banks' vaults. Other challenges include worsening shortage of clean and fit banknotes, with attendant negative perception of the Apex Bank and increased risk to financial stability, increasing ease by criminals and risk of counterfeiting, evidenced by several security reports received by the security agencies, the government, and the CBN. Apart from overcoming the identified challenges, there are benefits to be gained from the currency redesign exercise.
The benefits of the currency redesign to Nigerian economy are enormous, given that A, this policy will help to control inflation, as the exercise will bring the hoarded currency back into the banking system, thereby making monetary policy more effective. B, it will also help with better design and implementation of monetary policy, as we would have much more accurate data on money supply and our monetary aggregates. Third, we believe that this exercise will help in increasing financial inclusion, moving towards a more cashless economy, and ensuring greater formalization of the Nigerian economy. D, the currency redesign would assist in the fight against corruption, as the exercise would rein in the higher denomination used for corruption, and the movement of such funds from the banking system could be tracked easily by the relevant security agencies. The redesigned 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1000 Naira banknotes will have the features of enhanced security, greater durability, attractiveness, and a rich heritage. The ability of the Central Bank of Nigeria to initiate sound policies that positively impact Nigerians and support economic growth such as the currency design policy, is due to the independence of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I'd like to also emphasize that the independence of the Central Bank of Nigeria, though codified in our law, would not have been possible without the full and total support of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has made this policy initiative possible and successful.
Ahead of the official unveiling, President Muhammadu Buhari noted that international best practice requires central banks and national authorities to issue new or redesigned currency notes every 5 to 8 years. Yet, it has been almost 20 years since the last major redesign of Nigeria's currency, an indication that it is long overdue for the Naira to wear a new look.
As is known, our local laws, specifically the Central Bank of Nigeria Act of 2007, grants the Central Bank of Nigeria the power to issue and redesign the Naira. In line with this power, the Central Bank Governor approached me earlier in this year to seek my permission to embark on a currency redesign project. I considered all the facts and reasons presented before me by the Central Bank. There was an urgent need to take control of currency in circulation and to address the hoarding of Naira banknotes outside the banking system, the shortage of clean and fit banknotes in circulation, and the increase in counterfeiting of high-denomination Naira banknotes. It is on this basis that I gave my approval for the redesign of the 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira banknotes. While this may not be apparent to many Nigerians, only 4 out of the 54 African countries print their currencies in their countries, and Nigeria is one. Hence, a majority of African countries print their currencies abroad and import them the way we import other goods. That is why it is with immense pride that I announce to you that these redesigned currencies are locally produced right here in Nigeria by our Security Printing and Minting PLC.
The one you're holding down a little, sir, is reflecting the light.
Mr. President, here is a copy. 1,000 Naira. 500 Naira. And 200 Naira.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
At a post-unveiling press briefing comprising the CBN governor, the 4 CBN deputy governors, and chiefs of Nigeria's anti-graft agencies, namely the EFCC and ICPC, issues around the timing of the currency redesign exercise and cash withdrawal limits going forward were addressed.
There is no need for anybody to think that this program is targeted at anyone. Like you heard the president speak in the chambers, he said that the discussion to redesign and reissue currency started early in the year. We took painstaking efforts in looking at the pros and cons and the reasons when it should be and why it should be done. And the president, in his wisdom, decided that yes, it must be done. But of course, we have the laws, and we will indeed be more intense in ensuring that the provisions of the law and our CBN regulations about the size and volume of currencies that people can hold or can carry or can withdraw, that we would insist that this is done going forward. The world has moved away from cash, predominantly cash, to cashless economy. And I think Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria is prepared at this time to move towards a cashless economy. And that is the reason why, following the redesign and issuance of this note, we would go forward to insisting that cashless will be nationwide. We will restrict the volume of cash that people will withdraw over the counter. If you need to draw large volumes of cash, you will fill uncountable forms. We will take your data, whether it's your BVN, your NIN, so that security agencies like EFCC or enforcement agencies like EFCC and ICPC can follow you and be sure that you are taking that money for good purpose. We have to work as a country. Nigeria is the biggest country, both in population and economy in Africa. And we have to ensure that we do things the right way that also positions us as a leader in Africa and one of the leading countries in the world. We must do things right, and I think it will start from today.
Mr. Emefiele notified the general public that arrangements have been made with the banks to keep their currency processing centers open from Mondays to Saturdays till late hours, while the CBN currency processing centers across the 36 states and the FCT will be available to process cash 6 days a week until the expiration of the exercise on January the 31st, 2023. He expressed confidence in the security features of the redesigned Naira denominations.
These currencies, these notes, they cannot be counterfeited because of the security features in them. Nobody can counterfeit them. What you could only find will be people making photocopies of these notes. If you follow due process to check the authenticity of a currency, take them through the UV lights, you will find that these currencies can never be counterfeited. The best you will find is photocopies of these currencies. And that's why we still call them counterfeit. But what I'm trying to say in essence is this: to reduce that incidence of counterfeiting or photocopying, that is why we're saying the CBN must now, without waiting, every 5 to 8 years, must redesign and reissue these notes, so that those who think they can take advantage of the system by counterfeiting will know that the game is over with them.
The second edition of the biannual RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit, organized by the Central Bank of Nigeria in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, holds on Tuesday, November 29, 2022 at the Eco Hotel and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos, with the theme RT200 Non-Oil Export Scheme, The Journey So Far. The event will feature keynote speeches from the summit host and Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and the chief host, the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. There will also be panelist discussions by major industry players. Guests are expected to be seated at 8:30 a.m. prompt. Attendance is open to all stakeholders in the non-oil export sector. This message is announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN.
Thanks for staying tuned. You're watching From the CBN, a weekly program that brings to you reports and expert analysis of the actions, policies, events, and economic initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria on Monday the 21st and Tuesday 22nd November met for the last time this year to appraise development in both local and global economies, as well as outlook for the rest of the year and into the first quarter of next year. The committee observed that the domestic economy has sustained positive output growth for 7 consecutive quarters following the exit from recession in 2020, driven largely by the positive growth in the non-oil sectors, complemented by continued policy support by the Apex Bank. CBN staff projections showed that the economy is expected to remain on a path of sustained positive growth, given the expected strong performance in the fourth quarter of 2022 and steady rebound in economic activities. Members, however, noted with concern the persisting uptick in inflation for the 9th consecutive month, with headline inflation year-on-year rising to 21.09% in October. Meanwhile, on a month-to-month basis, headline inflation decelerated to 1.24 in October, indicating that price developments is responding to the bank's recent policy rate hikes.
As regards whether to hold, MPC was of the view that a hold stands at a period close to December festive season and expected heavy spending during the 2023 general election at the time of high inflation would greatly jeopardize the gains of previous policy rate hikes and plunge the economy deeper into the inflation trap. MPC therefore decided to continue to tighten, but at a somewhat moderated rate, noting that tightening the stance of policy would narrow the negative real effective interest rate margin and thus improve market sentiment and further restore investors' confidence. MPC also felt that recent developments in terms of observed month-on-month deceleration in the rate of increase in inflation suggest that the previous tightening moves were yielding the expected outcome. It therefore felt that sustaining the tightening would further consolidate the decline in inflation, albeit more significantly. The committee's choices were on whether to further hike rates or pause for the impact of the last three rate hikes to continue to feed through. At this meeting, therefore, the options considered were primarily to hold or further tighten the policy rate. The options to loosen was not considered, as this would gravely undermine the gains of the last three policy rate hikes. Committee thus voted by a unanimous vote to raise the MPR. 9 members voted to raise the MPR by 100 basis points, and 2 members voted to raise the MPR by 50 basis points. In summary, MPC voted to 1. Raise the MPR to 16.5%, 2. Retain the asymmetric corridor of plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the MPR, 3. Retain the CRR at 32.5%, and 4. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
Responding to the question of whether the MPC is concerned that a tight monetary policy stance will hurt growth, the CBN governor said at 21.09% in October, inflation is already hurting growth and needed to be tamed aggressively.
We all know that raising rates will hurt growth, because if you are dealing with reining in inflation, which means tightening and raising rates, that will ultimately, the rising interest rates will hurt manufacturing and agricultural output, that will ultimately hurt the growth. We know that. But at this time, given the aggressive rate at which inflation is trending upwards, monetary policy, seeing inflation or combating inflation as its primary mandate, feels that we must deal with it. Not just that we must deal with it, but also because we believe at 21.09%, inflation is already hurting growth. If we did not see this high level of inflation in the last 7 months, we would have been damn optimistic that growth would have hit close to 4%. But because of the aggressive rate of rise in inflation, it is hurting growth at this level in Nigeria. And that's the reason you will see that we are taking this very, very seriously. Because whether you even try to either loosen or hold rates low, what you will find is that at this kind of levels of above 14 to 15% into 21%, growth would either decelerate or at best will be very, very weak, will not be at the level that you think growth rate should be. So that is the reason MPC remains pro reining in inflation, to make sure that we're able to keep prices at moderated level.
The next day, members of the press met with the CBN directors, corporate communications, monetary policy, banking supervision, risk management, currency operations, and development finance departments for a post-MPC interaction to dissect facts behind the numbers.
My name is Imauja Vanguard. With the difference between the inflation rate and the last MPR, I'm wondering, why did you restrict yourself to 100 basic points increase?
Yes, Mauja, we did only 100 basis points, but we know that the market is currently very tight. Director of Bank Supervision will confirm to you that the banks are crying, and you also asked the question you asked around the auction. So, you know, there's that tightness. Don't forget that we did the last one, we did MPR, we did CRR. So it's a double whammy, you know, that was hitting the system. Now we do Naira redesign. A lot of that will also sterilize a lot of those money. We will not release those monies into the system. A lot of them will still be pulled out because banks need to meet their liquidity ratios and all those prudential requirements. So we are moderating, and that's why we said this MPR increase is a moderation, you know, but we're seeing that we have not reached, you know, the end of the tunnel yet, and we're seeing light, but it's not the bright sunlight that we're seeing. So let's go gradually. Let's allow the economy to have some breathing space to recoup from that tightening, and this will just be a further signal that we're still looking at the inflation numbers, and we really need to narrow that down very quickly.
Thank you. Around the issue of the impact of the Naira redesign, and speaking here from a banking stability standpoint, and this is very important for members of the public to appreciate, especially members of the press, as you do your reporting of developments around this issue. First, as we all know, like the Director of Currency stated, over 2.7 trillion naira, you know, outside the banking system, and we need to hold all that in. And he has given different scenarios we are looking at in terms of what will come in. So far, the progress has been mixed, especially with the relatively low cash evacuation to the central bank, not what we expected, but of course, this is typical, the usual Nigerian factor. We wait until the last minute and then we're expecting that rush. But regardless, we are very optimistic that our initial objectives will be met. This policy has been described in many, using many adjectives. Some say it is a masterstroke. Indeed, it is a very, very, you know, good policy. Number one, by the time all that deposit comes in, and we've been receiving a lot of cash deposits, but to the extent that the new currency notes are not in circulation yet, people make deposits and they also make withdrawals. So, but as we inch closer to the cut-over date, we expect that the volume of cash deposits will go up significantly, and our objective of mopping up all that excess cash outside the banking system will be met.
The second edition of the biannual RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit, organized by the Central Bank of Nigeria in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, holds on Tuesday, November 29, 2022 at the Eco Hotel and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos, with the theme RT200 Non-Oil Export Scheme, The Journey So Far. The event will feature keynote speeches from the summit host and Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and the chief host, the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. There will also be panelist discussions by major industry players. Guests are expected to be seated at 8:30 a.m. prompt. Attendance is open to all stakeholders in the non-oil export sector. This message is announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN.
Maiden edition of the International Financial Inclusion Conference started yesterday in Abuja, bringing together industry experts to discuss financial inclusion for all, scaling innovative digital models. We'll bring you details in our next episode. You can report on resolved banking issues to the CBN Consumer Protection Department using the email cpd@cbn.gov.ng attach relevant document. Call the CBN contact center on the phone line +234 700 2255 226. Local call rates may apply. For inquiries and comments, use the email address fromthecbn@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter for updates and to watch uploaded episodes of the program. We invite you to join us again next time. I am Oluyemi Dada. Stay safe and bye for now.